Welcome to Hacking the Race. My name is Keanu. I make videos on the strategy behind the amazing race. In today's video, we are taking a break from the strategy of it all and just doing a simple cast assessment of season 35, which is the upcoming season. Now, if there are any actual racers watching this, please don't take offense to my opinions. This is based on very limited information from the cast videos. I'm not trying to make fun or put teams down. I'm basically trying to figure out who I think is going to do well and who is going to do bad. And again, that's based on very limited information. And usually my predictions are wrong anyways. For example, Emily and Molly last season, I thought they were not going to do good. I thought that they were not going to communicate well since they didn't really know each other existed throughout most of their life, and they got second place. So who's to say how well a team is going to actually do? So in no particular order, I'm just going to go through the teams here. I'm not going to go really too deep into it. This is just more for fun. So first team we have are a pair of siblings, Alexandra and Sheridan. Now, I thought that whenever they answered a question, they were kind of unsure and they would glance to their partner to get like some sense of validation that they were saying like a good answer. And it just screamed to me that this was like a very neurotic team. There's this, I feel like how that's going to translate to the race is that they're not going to be very decisive. And so I'm overall not feeling too hot on them. I thought an interesting question that was asked this year to the teams was, what team reminds you the most of yourselves? And they said Ishwar and Aparna, and I kind of get that too because they're more of like the nerdy team, if you will. And I don't think they're going to come off as bland as Ishwar and Aparna, but I don't think, even if they are they seem like they've watched the show. They talked about how they've done their poses throughout all of the world together. And so they've definitely watched the show, but I just don't know if watching the show and being a super fan of the show is going to translate into doing well on the show. So next is Ashley and Todd, a married couple, California. So they have an interesting dynamic. Todd seems the more extroverted social guy, and then Ashley is a little bit more reserved. Kind of seems a little more type A, so that's an interesting relationship to follow. I like when teams have, like, the partners themselves have different personalities, and so I feel like they complement each other well. They seem to have a great foundation in their marriage. I feel like this team, they're going to argue, but not in a destructive way. I think they're going to have productive arguments, which is a good thing for teams to do. You should argue so that you can figure out what's the best solution to a problem. Overall, they're giving me Jason and Amy and a little bit of Tim and Marie, but not as intense vibes. So overall, I think they're going to do well. I'm pretty high on them. Next up is mother and daughter, Elizabeth and Iliana. It seems to me a lot of these parent-child relationships, they're usually super fans. They usually like grew up watching the show. Similar for them specifically, they threw these parties that were Amazing Race themed, which I think is awesome. I wish my family did that. But just because, again, you're a super fan doesn't mean that you're going to do well on the show. I do think that they have this sense of, they seem like go-getters to me. The daughter, I think it's Iliana, she's a hustler. She does 8 jobs. And so I feel like they have that energy, that hunger in them to win, which bodes well for them. Now, a mother-daughter archetype team has not done well historically. I don't even know who's the highest placing mother-daughter team, but I am rooting for them. And the team that reminds me the most from the past is something like James Earl and Denise. Was it Denise and James Earl? I hope I got the mother's name right. But yeah, they're the sleeper pick for me. Next up are Greg and John, a pair of brothers. They're like the ultimate big package. I mean, they seem smart, they're athletic, they're young, they seem to know the show very well, and so I'm high on them. This is actually my winner pick. If I had to choose the team that I think would do the best in 100 simulations of the show, I feel like they would win the most of it. The team that reminds me the most of them is Azaria and Hendekia from season 12, which was one of my favorite teams. They sadly got eliminated too early, but they have everything going for them. So the only way in which they lose is if they make some very massive mistake. So moving on, my laptop is going to die. Let's fix that. Moving on, we have married couple Jocelyn and Victor. Their answer, they were like very hard to read. Not too much personality that I got from the interviews. They did remind me of Hung and Chi, and I think based on their interview alone, they were lacking that intensity that I needed. I want to see the drive, but I remember watching Hung and Chi's cast video, their casting videos, and I also didn't think they had that intensity in their drive until we saw them race. And Jocelyn and Victor, similar to Hung and Chi, are bringing one backpack, so I know that they've prepared and studied for the show. So I hope they prove me wrong and they give me Hung and Chi upside, but we'll have to see. So next are Joe and Ian. They are an engaged couple. Similar to Greg and John, they seem well-rounded, they're fit, they seem smart. I enjoy their banter. And I think we're going to get some good commentary from them. I think the very obvious connection to a previous team would be Will and James, who won their season. They have all the things that it seems like that they would do super well. So next up are Joel and Garrett. They are best friends from Idaho. I did not like their answer to, what quality makes for a winning team of the race. And someone said positivity, and no, positivity can help you in a rough situation, but that is not the defining factor of who wins these shows. It's a good quality to have, but your answer should be attention to detail, communication, not we're going to be positive. So that tells me that they haven't really watched the show too much. I also thought their answer was interesting. They picked the Cowboys as the team. Someone said they hope to portray themselves just like how the Cowboys did. And we all know, or maybe some of us know, what words have been said behind closed doors with that team. So, okay. Anyways, they're giving me Nathan and Cody energy, and I'm not too high on this team. But again, this is based on very limited information. Next up, we have Liam and Yeremi. They're brothers. The immediate connection I got was the military bros from last season. They are also ex-military themselves, and they have kind of a similar backstory in that they weren't necessarily, best friends growing up, but now are trying to rekindle that relationship and are growing, with each other. There's a lot of male teams this season. I think there's 5. So yeah, I think what they have going for them is that they're athletic. They seem to know the show really well, and that's all we kind of got. So let's just move on. There's not much to go after. I didn't really get too much from them anyways. Next up are Malaina and Andrea. Overall, I didn't feel like they had the best game sense. When one of them said they didn't like the Afghanimals because they don't play the race fair, tells me they lack the cutthroatness to win. Certainly they can win, but the race is a race. It's not about fairness per se. It's about trying to get ahead of everyone else. So I just don't really like teams like that, but I certainly appreciate them from a casting standpoint because they seem really fun, and I do hope they get far because out of all the teams, they gave me the most personality. They were giving me like Team Goat Yoga, like the team like you don't think is gonna do well and then actually ends up not doing well. But I don't think they're gonna bicker as much as Goat Yoga did. Overall, not too high in this team, but I want them on my TV screen for as long as possible. Next are Morgan and Lena. I thought that they seemed genuine in their answer about what makes a good team, which is resilience. I'm overall pretty high on this team. I am all for a strong female team. They gave all of the right answers. Now it's just seeing if they can put those words into action. The team that reminded me the most of them is Pam and Winnie. I forgot if Pam and Winnie were best friends or if they were siblings themselves. But overall, I picked that team because they're confident, they seem to know each other really well, and they are very driven. So I hope this team goes very far. Next up are Rob and Corey. I thought it was interesting that I believe it was Corey said, we can communicate from afar, we can communicate even underwater. And I don't think there's many situations in which you have to communicate underwater, but you know. It was interesting that the father said that they're most like the Globetrotters because they seemed pretty bland to me and not that much fun. But, you know, we shall see. The obvious connection is Margie and Luke since Luke was deaf. But they didn't really give me the team dynamic like that. It was just the connection through them being both deaf. But the team that reminded me the most of them is like something like Lawrence and Zach. So overall, not too high on this team. Yeah, I don't know. Next are Robin and Chelsea. They seem badass. They're giving me Christy and Jen vibes. Chelsea seems like a big super fan. I am really digging this team. They've clearly seen the show because they reference like Kim and Allie, and I think Chelsea was the one who said that she even bought like or rented like a DVD just because she missed one episode. I really hope this team does well. Yeah, that's it. Okay, moving on. Next are Steve and Anna Leigh. The fact that they mentioned Michelle and Lewis, they didn't give me Michelle and Lewis vibes. They clearly gave me like Gary and Mallory because of the Southern connection. And also in the intro package for Mallory, they introduced her like as a tomboy growing up. It was just like a lot of connections there. And the fact that they mentioned Michelle and Lewis tells me that maybe they're not the hugest fans of the show because they just referenced the team that was on from last season. Overall, kind of bland, but I did like the story that it seems like he hasn't traveled much, so I like to see teams that haven't traveled in the past and are now traveling all around the world. So those are the 13 teams. Some random things I was thinking about is there was a lot of talk about the Afghanimals, and so a lot of talk about the Afghanimals. And there were other teams from season 24, which was Amazing Race All-Stars 2. And I just can't imagine that they showed season 24 to them, like, during the preseason. Anyhow, so that was kind of strange to me. I think overall this looks like a very promising group. I think with the 90-minute episodes, we can get a more full-fledged idea, a full-fledged understanding of their team dynamic and personalities, which I'm looking forward to because I feel like it's just too packed for a 60-minute episode. But let me know what you think. I, again, don't want to delve too much deep into this because probably all of my assessments, a good majority of them are going to be wrong, and I'm eager to be proven wrong. So Anyhow, I'll see you guys in the next one.